You always say the right thing.
Maybe I've learned how to listen.
No, you're exactly what I imagined.
And what happens when I stop being that?
What if every relationship failure you've experienced wasn't about her losing interest, but about you unknowingly volunteering to play a character in someone else's psychological fantasy? Have you ever wondered why women seem attracted to you in the beginning, only to end up resenting you later? And why this same pattern keeps repeating no matter who you date? If you've ever felt like you're performing in relationships instead of living them, then what Carl Jung discovered about the hidden forces controlling modern relationships will fundamentally change everything you think you know about love. In the next few minutes, you'll discover why most men become prisoners of feminine projection, how to recognize when you're being cast as a character instead of seen as a man, and the brutal but liberating path Jung called individuation that will free you from this cycle forever. If you're ready to stop playing roles and become the author of your own life, hit that like button and subscribe with notifications on, because this psychological truth will force you to confront uncomfortable realities about yourself. But it's the only path to becoming truly unshakable as a man. If this psychological awakening resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in Jung's warnings about living as someone else's projection, then you're ready for the transformation that comes next. Right now, hit that like button, not just because you enjoyed the content, but because you're declaring that you're done playing characters in other people's fantasies. And if you want to continue this journey of psychological awakening, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, because what you just experienced is only the beginning. The path of individuation that Jung described isn't a destination, it's a lifelong journey. And you'll need guides who aren't afraid to tell you the brutal truth about becoming an unshakable man. Your subscription isn't just support, it's your commitment to never settling for the performance again. Your promise to keep walking this path nitrogen monoxide, matter how challenging it gets. Because on the other side is the man you were always meant to be. Let's go. It always starts the same way. She looks at you not as you are, but as who she imagines you might become. You feel it in her eyes, don't you? That flicker of hope. Or is it hunger? You think you're being seen, but you're not. You're being measured, assessed, scanned like a blank canvas waiting for her to paint her masterpiece. But the masterpiece isn't you. It never was. And Carl Jung warned you about this. Not with the soft words of a motivational speaker, but with the sharp surgical precision of a man who spent his life staring into the psychological abyss of the human soul. Jung's entire life was devoted to mapping what he called the unconscious, that part of the human mind that operates silently beneath your awareness. And he discovered something profound about human relationships. He discovered that people don't just fall in love with other people. They fall in love with ideas, with fantasies, with projections. And the scariest part? Most of them don't even realize they're doing it. You might think she's choosing you, but what she's actually choosing is the version of you she's created in her own mind, a psychological puppet who exists to play a role in her private movie. And when you stop fitting the script, she changes the actor, not the story. Jung called this projection the Animus, the inner masculine image that lives inside every woman. And when that animus is immature, undeveloped, or unchecked, it becomes a tyrant. It becomes the unseen force that makes women chase dangerous men and reject good ones. It makes them argue without reason, dominate without wisdom, and moralize without accountability. Jung didn't sugarcoat this. He described it as a spiritual possession, a state where the woman herself becomes unaware that she's no longer acting from her own consciousness, but from the shadowy grip of her inner masculine fantasy. And men, you fall for it because nobody taught you to spot it. You confuse being desired with being known. You mistake being chosen with being understood. You believe her words when she says you're different, when in reality you're just the latest face she's cast to fulfill a role she's been rehearsing since childhood. And when the fantasy collapses, when the mask slips, you're left confused, betrayed, and humiliated, wondering what you did wrong. But you didn't do anything wrong. You just stopped being a convincing actor in someone else's play. Jung warned that the only way out of this psychological theater is through what he called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole within yourself. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most men never start that journey. You've been trained to chase approval, seek validation, to let others define your worth. And as long as you do, you'll keep playing the same role over and over again, getting replaced every time the audience gets bored. Individuation isn't glamorous. It's brutal. It requires you to confront the parts of yourself you've buried, the weak, the insecure, the broken. It demands that you stop blaming others for not seeing you and start seeing yourself. Because here's what Jung knew that most men will never understand. You don't become a man by being chosen. You become a man by choosing yourself. You don't earn your worth through external affection. You earn it by standing alone, fully awake, responsible, fully alive. A man who has faced his own unconscious cannot be seduced by projection. He is no longer a puppet in someone else's fantasy. He is the author of his own reality. Jung observed that the greatest tragedy of modern men is not that they are rejected, but that they are willing to mold themselves into whatever shape they believe will be accepted. You call it compromise. You call it partnership. You call it love. But Jung had a different name for it: self-betrayal. He warned that men who ignore their own psychological development become slaves to feminine projection, bending themselves like wet clay into the shapes demanded by women who don't even know their own true desires. You stop being men and start being masks, smiling, nodding, agreeing, performing until you forget who you were before you put the mask on. And women sense this. Oh, they sense it more than you could possibly imagine. The very thing you think will make her love you, obedience, predictability, availability, becomes the very reason she loses attraction. Why? Because the feminine instinct, Jung taught, isn't drawn to comfort. It's drawn to mystery, to risk, to the man she cannot fully define or control. The moment you make yourself fully known, without boundaries, without a backbone, you don't become more lovable. You become invisible, disposable, replaceable. And yet, here's the paradox that keeps most men enslaved. You fear being alone more than you fear being fake. You'd rather lose yourself than lose her. You'd rather live in a role than face the terror of standing without applause. But Jung taught that until a man embraces that solitude, he will never be free. He wrote that individuation is a path not for the faint-hearted, because it requires you to die before you die, to let the false versions of yourself burn so that something real can finally emerge. But let me tell you something that nobody wants to say out loud. Individuation is lonely, terrifyingly lonely, because as you walk that path, you begin to see things you cannot unsee. You begin to recognize the games people play, the masks they wear, the lies they tell themselves just to feel safe. And when you try to share what you see, they mock you. They call you cold, arrogant, too serious. They accuse you of being the problem, but you're not the problem. You're the mirror. And people hate mirrors when they show them something they don't want to face. Jung knew this well. He spent decades studying patients who were terrified to confront their own shadow, the dark, rejected parts of their psyche they refused to acknowledge. And women, Jung warned, are often raised in cultures that reward them for avoiding that confrontation. They are told they're pure, emotional, intuitive, and complete just as they are. But Jung didn't buy it. He wrote that the greatest danger to women was their unconscious animus, the voice inside them that speaks with false certainty, false authority, and moral superiority. He warned that if a woman does not face and integrate this inner masculine force, she becomes a prisoner of it, projecting it onto every man she meets, blaming them for the very war she refuses to fight within herself. And here you are, thinking you're her savior, thinking you'll be the exception, thinking that if you just love her hard enough, prove yourself loud enough, perform well enough, she'll finally choose you for you. But that's not how projection works. Jung taught that projection is a thief. It steals reality and replaces it with illusion. And until both men and women wake up from that illusion, they are destined to repeat the same tragedy over and over again, each one blaming the other, never realizing they're both dancing with shadows. And here lies the most ironic twist of all. The woman who once saw you as her hero will one day see you as her enemy, not because you changed, but because you failed to fulfill the fantasy she cast onto you. And she won't even realize she's doing it. Jung called this psychological betrayal inevitable when neither party takes responsibility for their own inner world. You didn't lie to her or betray her. You simply disappointed the invisible character she invented in her unconscious mind. You were never him to begin with. And that's why she resents you. Not for your flaws, but for failing to live up to the myth she never told you you were hired to play. Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And nowhere is this more true than in romantic relationships. Both men and women enter them not as whole individuals, but as walking projections, dragging their unlived fears, unmet needs, and unresolved childhood wounds into the arms of another person they barely understand. You call it love. Jung called it possession. And like a man hypnotized, you keep walking into the trap, thinking this time it will be different. But it never is, because you have not yet asked the most terrifying question a man can ask himself. What if I am the one responsible for this pattern? You want to blame women. You want to call them manipulative, deceptive, shallow. But Jung would look you in the eye and ask, and why did you let yourself be chosen by that woman in the first place? You see, the man who refuses to confront his own feminine inner world is destined to be a slave to hers. You are not a victim. You are a volunteer. You chose to play the fool. You chose to be the actor in her private myth because facing your own emptiness, your own lack of wholeness, was far more terrifying than playing a part in someone else's fantasy. And here's where most of you will stop listening, because this is where the comfort ends and responsibility begins. Jung didn't offer cheap solutions. He didn't give you 3 steps to greatness. He gave you the brutal lifelong task of self-confrontation, of sitting alone in the silence of your own mind until the illusions start to crack, until the voice in your head that says you're nothing without her begins to die. And make no mistake, that voice will fight for its life. It will tell you that you need her, that you are incomplete without her, that no man can live without feminine validation. But Jung's work whispers something more dangerous. It whispers that the man who can stand without her, without approval, without applause, without being needed, is the man who is finally free. Free from projection, free from performance, free from the tyranny of living as someone else's idea of a man. And when you reach that place, you don't become cold or distant. You become real, rooted, fully alive in your own skin. And that is when, paradoxically, women will feel the most drawn to you, not because you need them, but because you don't. And you'll smile, not because you're heartless, but because you finally understand. You understand that she is on her own journey too, that she must face her own animus, that she must wake from her own illusions, and you can't do that work for her. You can't save her from herself. You can only do what Jung did. You can walk your own path so fearlessly that you become a living mirror, reflecting the truth back to everyone who dares to look. Most will turn away, but a few, the rare ones, will thank you for it. And that, my friend, is the difference between being loved for the role you play and being respected for the man you've become. And when that moment comes, when you finally realize you don't need to perform anymore, you'll start to notice something strange. You'll notice how uncomfortable people become around you. They'll sense it even if they can't name it. The weight of your presence will unsettle them because you no longer fit into the predictable categories they used to feel safe. Jung warned the individuated man is not welcomed by society. He is feared, misunderstood, labeled as distant or arrogant. But the truth is far more threatening. You have simply become untouchable, unbribable, unmanipulable because you see through the game. And here's where it gets interesting. The very people who once begged for your attention, your validation, your approval. They'll begin to resent you for not needing theirs. Women, especially those still possessed by the fantasy of the perfect man, will accuse you of being emotionally unavailable. They'll say you're too much in your head, too analytical, too distant. But what they really mean is that they can no longer control you. You've stepped off the stage. You've stopped reading from their script. And without that script, they don't know what to do with you because you've stopped being a character and started being a man. Jung once observed that the gods have become diseases, that what ancient cultures used to call divine possession, modern psychology calls neurosis. And make no mistake, men chasing validation are the most spiritually sick of all. You think you're being romantic when you say things like, "I'd do anything for her," or "she's my everything." But Jung would shake his head and tell you that what you call love is actually a refusal to carry your own soul. It's easier to project it onto a woman and make her the carrier of your hope, your meaning, your purpose. Because if she carries it, you don't have to. But here's the brutal twist. When she realizes she was never designed to carry your soul, she will drop it. She must drop it because no woman, no matter how loving, can hold the weight of a man who refuses to hold himself. And when she drops it, you'll feel betrayed. But you shouldn't. You should thank her because in that moment when the illusion collapses, you finally stand face to face with the truth that the work of becoming a man was never hers to do. It was always yours. And in that raw moment of clarity, you have two choices. You can blame her, become bitter. You can join the angry chorus of men who point their fingers at women, mocking them, resenting them, swearing them off like cowards who never dared to face their own emptiness. Or you can do what Jung would have demanded of you. You can turn inward and start the lonely, terrifying, liberating work of individuating, of becoming whole without needing someone else to complete you. Because the truth is, the woman you're searching for out there is a reflection of the part of yourself you've abandoned. Until you face that part, every relationship will be a performance, every connection a transaction, every love a lie. But when you do face it, when you integrate your own inner feminine, you become a man who no longer needs to chase women. You don't run after them. You don't manipulate them. You don't perform for them. You stand still, fully rooted in who you are. And from that place, something miraculous happens. You no longer attract women who want a character. You attract women who want the truth. And you'll know it when it happens, because she won't demand that you perform. She won't try to change your script. She won't fall in love with the fantasy of you. She stand before you, raw and real, not as a goddess looking for worship, but as a human being willing to walk her own path beside you. No masks, no projections, no games. And when you meet her, the real her, not the fantasy, you'll see the difference instantly. She won't flood you with grand declarations. She won't treat you like the missing piece of her puzzle. She won't seduce you with the language of completion because she isn't looking to be completed. She isn't looking to be saved. She's done the work. She's met her own shadow, confronted her own animus. She's burned through her own illusions. And that's why she won't need you to perform. She won't need you to carry her soul. She stand there, whole in herself, looking you in the eye, not as a man she wants to mold, but as a man she is finally ready to meet. And in that meeting, there is no desperation. There is no clinging. There is no performance. There's only truth. And that truth, Jung taught, is the rarest and most dangerous kind of love, the kind that demands nothing but offers everything. Because it is not born of need. It is born of freedom. Freedom to choose, freedom to walk away, freedom to stand together without illusions, without masks, without fear. But let me warn you, most of you will never experience this because most of you will quit before you get there. You'll settle for the performance. You'll settle for the fantasy. You'll settle for the temporary thrill of being seen as someone you are not, because facing who you truly are still feels unbearable. But if you have the courage, the brutal, gut-wrenching courage to keep walking, to keep standing alone, to keep stripping away every false layer you've built to earn approval, You will eventually find yourself standing at the edge of something terrifyingly beautiful. You will find yourself. And when you do, women will no longer be the source of your identity. They will no longer be the mirror you used to feel like a man. They will become something else entirely. Partners, not prizes. Mirrors, not mothers. Allies, not saviors. And you will love them, not because you need them, but because you choose to. From a place of strength, from a place of wholeness, from a place that knows without apology who you are. Carl Jung didn't leave you a map to follow. He left you a warning that every man who refuses to confront himself will become a slave to the projections of others, especially the projections of women. But he also left you a challenge to walk the path of individuation, to stop blaming women for the roles you volunteer to play, to stop seeking wholeness in someone else's eyes, to stop waiting to be chosen. Because the man who chooses himself fully, unapologetically, relentlessly, is the man who cannot be controlled by fantasy. He cannot be seduced by performance. He cannot be reduced to a character in someone else's script. He becomes the author of his own life. And if you've made it this far, if you felt this message hit somewhere deep inside you, don't just scroll away. Don't let this be another piece of content you consume and forget. Take a moment right now to hit that like button if this resonated with you. Your engagement helps this message reach other men who need to hear these truths. And if you're ready to dive deeper into the psychology of human behavior and relationships, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest insights. Share this video with another man in your life who might be living in the illusion, waiting to be set free. Your support isn't just for this channel. It's for the next person who's still trapped in the cycle, ready to break free and discover who they really are. Help us spread this message. Help us wake up one person at a time. Because the truth has a way of setting people free, but only if they're brave enough to face it.